To develop a better broadcasting and targeted advertising efficacy, for the first time ever, 20 radio stations, that's 16 national and 4 regional, under the umbrella of CRM, appointed GfK Malaysia, a market research company, to conduct a radio audience research survey. So with the rapid changes in the communications technology, the growth of deregulation, and the changes in consumer behavior, audience, and other forms of market research has become ever more vital. So today marks a new milestone in the industry as it signals the unification of the radio industry in the country, joining a single radio rating system. So what's different and what's new with the GfK measurement system, and how Malaysian radio has performed with regard to listenership and engagement with its audience? Please help me welcome Lee Risk, Commercial Director, Asia Pacific Media, GfK Asia. A little bit about Lee. He has over 20 years experience in market research both in Europe and the Asia Pacific. And under his leadership, GfK was awarded the radio audience measurement in Australia, New Zealand, Malaysia. And he has also worked with blue chip clients and marketing mix modeling project. Over to you, Lee.
Thanks, Rita, and good afternoon, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here. And it's a real honour for GfK to work closely with CRM to bring this new measurement to Malaysia. Just to introduce you, heard a little bit about GfK. We're one of the largest market research companies globally, and we carry out radio audience measurement in many other countries in the world, across Europe and the Asia Pacific region. It's already been mentioned in the very short time that people have been here about some doom and gloom around radio, but really there's no reason for it. I really have a lot of good news today, not just because we're running the audience measurement. We're an independent market research company. There's no agenda, but there's some really positive stuff I'd like to show you today. I'm going to quickly do an introduction and then very, very quickly take you through the methodology. This isn't an academic meeting. I'll very quickly, but I just want to highlight some of the changes that we've taken in this measurement. I'm going to talk then about top-line results. I'm not going to talk about radio station shares and stuff. I'll let the industry do that. I really want to give you some top-level trends that are happening. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about the why of radio. Why do people like radio? Why do they love radio? And concentrate a little bit on that. What if I told you that last year in Malaysia there were almost 13 million radios sold? I'm sure some of you might ask me to leave the stage and go, you must be crazy. But this is the whole thing about where measurement's going and where listening's going in radio, because the whole environment has changed incredibly in the last few years. And we see all this new technology, and GfK measure most of these products in Malaysia, and you can see the definition of a radio has changed. So your smartphone is a radio, your TV is a radio, your car is a radio, and always has been. So there's a massive amount of technology, and we've seen this over the decades that we've been tracking technology. We all like to think that we're changing the industry, and we are as an industry. But what we always see is changes in technology driving changes in consumer behaviour, driving changes in consumption. So whether you go back to the Sony Walkman in the 80s and the 90s, changed completely the way we listen to music. VCR, DVD, flat screen TV, computers, smartphones is the one that's really revolutionising everything now. And what we're seeing as well is different segments of audiences are using different platforms. So not surprisingly, the younger age groups are listening to radio more on smartphones. It makes sense, and I'll show you some numbers on that later as we go through. So I suppose, you know, there's been radio ratings in most countries, including Malaysia, for a long time. So why change things? Well, partly it's this slide, but maybe if we move forward and think, the measurement itself as a radio measurement has to remain relevant for the market. And what I mean here is that technology has changed massively, which I've just explained, but really the measurement hadn't changed so much. So you go back 20, 30 years, the technology was a radio. If you wanted to listen to radio, you bought a radio set. Zoom forward to now, we've got lots and lots of options that I just talked through. But the measurement before was generally paper and pen diary. As we were moving towards all this technology change, it was still paper and pen diary. So we have to make sure the measurement is keeping up to date. The next area that I think is important is the competition is changing. And when I talk about competition, I'm not talking about people in this room who are competing radio stations. I'm talking about the competitors of radio and the measurements, so especially with digital. The whole landscape is changing, and to stay relevant, you've got to have a measurement that is robust and credible. Finally, we needed to think about the consumers, how they wanted to do the surveys. So we do a survey on radio. Now, I kept hearing for a long time, you know what, youngsters are not listening to radio, or they're listening to a lot less radio. And I challenge that. What I would say is that youngsters don't want to fill in paper and pen diaries because they're on digital devices. And this was one big change we made, and it's been mentioned already. The other thing is that as our living habits change, more people living in condos, gated communities, if you're doing a face-to-face survey, it's very difficult to get into these people. And we've got online now, so we can use online to get beyond the security guards and interview people the way they want to be interviewed. At the same time, and I'm going to talk about the engagement on radio, at the same time the whole world is going through an attention deficit disorder of consumers. People have less and less attention span, which means I won't stay on too long, I promise, because I'm breaking my own rule here, talking about how little attention they have, and then I'm talking on. But really, and this isn't GfK research, this is scientists have done research. In terms of sustained attention span, that's moved from 12 minutes to 5 minutes. So that's the sort of time you could stay at a task before getting distracted. The one in the right is even more incredible. Our focused attention span has moved from 12 seconds to 8 seconds. And that's how long we can react to stimuli. So our immediate reaction. This is the thing, and we hear about it all the time. Now, the worrying thing for me is that a goldfish has 9-second attention span. So at the moment, goldfish are outscoring us in terms of attention spans, and that's what we're up against as an industry. So let's move quickly on then. So, let's talk quickly about the methodology of the new service. We introduced some new things, really to address some of the issues I was just talking about. I'm only going to show one slide on this. First thing we did was we're going to be in the market, we're actually measuring radio for more weeks, so 12 weeks per year. So we're going to be more representative of the year as a whole, rather than the really focused area. The other thing we always do is that it's a 12,000 a year sample, but it's a unique sample. This is 12,000 individuals. So although we do week on week, we refresh the sample every week throughout the period of measurement. And that's very important because that allows us then to really measure more stations, more granularity, and just get a broader feedback from the industry, okay, and the consumers. I think the big one that we really brought in for Malaysia was the electronic and mobile diaries. So we've got round about 20% at the moment of the sample taking electronic and mobile diaries. And that's a big, big advantage on a number of levels. As I mentioned, particularly younger people, that's the way they fill in things now. They don't use paper and pens. The other thing is, just from a research point of view, it's better for us as well because we can actually see when people are filling in the diaries. Whereas if you leave paper and pen, there is sometimes a danger that it's with them. Now, paper and pen is still a core part of the measurement in Malaysia. And we'll continue for a while. We'll work with CRM. Every year we're going to review just what we should do it. But we can't just move all to online because online panels are not representative of the population as a whole. That helps us reach through the guarded gated communities and professionals, etc. as well. And the other thing that it allows us to do is really get down to a granular level at state level. And I'll show you something on that now. So let's look at some of the results, and this is really positive news. It's been mentioned already, you may hear it I think a couple of times during this conference. 97% of the population are exposed to radio and listen to radio each week, according to the measurement. That's an incredible number. It's probably one of the highest in the world. I don't think it's the highest, but it's probably one of the highest in the world. It's an incredible medium. And if you want to reach populations quickly and easily, this is it. It really is incredible. So, yes, the death of radio is a little bit understated. There's still a lot of listening, nearly 15 hours per week on average. Predominantly still in home and in the car, and on average people are listening to about 2 stations per week, on average in Malaysia. So some really positive results. This is still very relevant radio. It's still being used. It's still being listened to. And I'm going to talk a bit more beyond the numbers later on. In terms of characteristics, it's a very balanced between male and female. In terms of languages understood, this isn't the language listened to, this is languages understood in the household, so it can be more than 100%. Again, number 1 Malay, then English and variations of Chinese following on from that. I mentioned we can really get down to state level, and you can just see some of the numbers here in terms of the listenership. So you can see we can go at aggregated regions, north, south, east and west, north, south, central and east, sorry. And what we can do now, we can really, within these states, really drill into regional variances here. So we can really see how many listeners are there in each state, but also what are the differences in habits. And this is just very top-line data, but you can drill right down to station preference, etc., and the platforms being used by demographics, etc. And you can see quite a variation just in these numbers, from anything from sort of 12 to 15 hours in terms of time spent listening. We talked a little bit about this earlier, so transportation is still the biggest platform, so to speak. Home is also very important. But look at that number 3, smartphone. So smartphone is becoming very, very popular in terms of listening to radio. And with smartphone penetration increasing, that obviously opens up more. Obviously, I said the smartphone is a radio, but it's obviously other things as well. It's a TV, it's an internet browser as well. But you can see there's strong usage on smartphone. And just to finish up on the top line results, I want to just highlight this as well, because we can really see the demographics again. So on the left-hand side, you've got radio in vehicles and at home. Tends to be an older profile. But then we're seeing internet, smartphone, much, much younger profile again. So again, the industry needs to package, and is packaging, in my opinion, the offerings to meet the different demographics. So youngsters are still listening to radio. They're doing it in different platforms, but they're still listening. Okay, so that's the sort of numbers. So, and I'm about to talk about some consumer study that we carried out. But I want to just, obviously, the radio ratings will remain very, very important in terms of trading currency. You know, you need to know what was listened to, when, how, on which platform, on which station. Absolutely crucial when you're buying radio advertising. But taking just the currency, just the audience numbers, I think is missing a whole chunk of the story around radio. And to address this, we agreed with CRM that we would conduct the first Radio Insights study in Malaysia as part of this wave. And again, there's lots of insights in here, but I just want to give you the top line. We did 50% face-to-face, 50% online. It was 1,000 sample. They were not the same people who filled in the diaries for the radio audience measurement. It was a separate sample. The other thing is, this group, we focused in on the 15 to 49, so this is not total population. So you'll see some numbers that are very strong on digital, because we focused in on these people to see what they're doing. And really, what we wanted to do here was really get an idea of, we know what they're listening to. We wanted to find out about why and what makes radio important to them. And I want to share some of the insights from here. So, songs, as we all know on radio, and we're listening to it just before we come up, some nice music. Songs are so important. Number one reason for people listening to radio is still to hear songs that I already like and know. Very, very strong. So we ask people, what makes you listen to radio? It's also about discovery, so it's about finding new songs and being introduced to new music. And then it's also to keep up to date, whether it be with trends or news. So still real reasons why you can do it. And one of the things you're probably thinking is, well, I can get new songs anywhere, but people are still choosing radio because of songs. Even though you can get them all over the place, they're still coming back to radio. Ease of accessibility is also a big issue, according to Malaysian consumers. So it's this, I can listen to it anywhere, anytime. And again, with the offerings that radio is now having, it's possible to listen to radio anywhere. It's always been a very, very portable medium, the most portable, and it's still coming out very strongly. This idea of live as well, this connection with live interaction is also important to consumers. And very, very important, I think, and it comes out in studies we do all over the world, this engagement and companionship, it's my buddy. Yeah? And that always comes out very, very strongly in radio research. We also, and this will be good news to DJs out there, we asked people, look, if your favourite radio station went off the air, would you miss it? And thankfully, 64% said, yeah, I would miss it a lot. I would really miss my favourite radio station. Only 30% said a little, and a tiny amount said they didn't care, 6%. Only 6% said it doesn't bother me. Now again, digital is the big thing at the moment, the internet. I can't imagine anyone saying, you know what, if my favourite web page disappeared, I would really miss it. you just go elsewhere. It's very replaceable. What they're saying here is the loyalty here and the engagement is incredibly high. And we didn't ask it in this round, but in other countries we've run studies specifically on DJs. You know, how much you like a DJ, and we see a very similar pattern. There's a very personal connection both with the station and with the DJ. And we've seen it in other markets. I mean, it was mentioned we run the currency in Australia. The first wave that GfK ever did in Australia, one of the top breakfast shows moved station. Okay? The station it had moved from was number 1. When they moved, it was number 4 in the market. The station that was number 5, where they moved to, became number 1 overnight. And that had nothing to do with change of suppliers or market research companies. That was a real loyalty of audience. And we could see that. We also asked people, well, what's the function of different media for you? And it really comes through again, very, very strongly, what the position of radio is. It's this engagement. It's got to entertain you, so it's got to be entertaining. It is a medium. But it's again this, it keeps me company and it relaxes me. So it's your companion and it keeps you calm. And if you've been in the KL traffic, you probably need it. The few times I've been in the traffic here. Just on traffic, we see all over Asia, time spent listening generally increasing in a lot of countries. One of the reasons is car ownership's going up, and as a result, traffic jams are getting heavier. And still, in the car, the radio is the chosen one. But that's an aside. One point to make is that on this survey, radio came out top in terms of scores, in terms of sentiment. As you can see, TV is much more on the entertainment side. It's not your companion. So, and we know TV tends to be much more of a family. Your companion is your family, not the TV. And it's much more about entertainment, making you laugh, and also switching off a little bit. The internet, on the other hand, is much more about keeping me informed. Yeah? Still entertains me, especially stupid cat videos and stuff. I'm sure that's what you want to call entertainment. Still does it, and there's still a bit of relaxation. And then finally we asked about the print media, and it's very much different reasons. So there's very different positions of the different media. Print is really all about keeping us informed, keeping us up to date. Yeah. So just to summarise that, really, really strong message coming through about companionship, engagement with radio. Of course, we're not in this industry just for the fun of it and just to entertain. It's a business, and to fund that, we need advertising. And again, we asked this survey about, okay, how does different media ads resonate with you? And you can see radio came out second top here. So a very strong picture. Television slightly higher, but very strong. So what this is saying is radio ads are very memorable to me, even though it's audio. And we asked other statements about how much people agree with certain statements. You know, the halo from the station to the brand, and it's pretty strong. So people associate radio as being a robust, trustworthy medium, and therefore brands that are advertised on it as such. So all things around trust, authenticity, and making people more loyal to the brands. The other thing that it didn't come out quite as strongly, but we hear it all the time, is when a radio station endorses a brand. So we hear much about this is brought in association, or a DJ talking about a product was picked up as well here. The other big area that everyone's talking about is social media. Okay? As I say, this was a younger segment we interviewed here, so we had very high penetration of social media here. But it's the right-hand side I'd like you to look at, because what we saw was that of these people that interact with media directly, and this isn't about listening or watching, this is actually going on to a social media property of a broadcaster or someone in the industry. And we see it's very high for radio. 42% said that they interact with a social media on radio. And we dug into that a little bit deeper here. And what we found was that a lot of people were liking, they're visiting and reading stuff behind the show and behind the broadcaster. They're going into the website, and they're also getting actively involved, so they're commenting about shows, DJs, content. They're interacting with the station, whether it be competitions or things like that. So again, what this says to me is very, very strong engagement again. Really, people feeling as if it's almost a family member, the radio station, and the DJ is your friend or companion on the commute to work or an early evening journey back home. What we also asked was, we asked across media, saying, okay, how often do you go into various media, social media properties? And just to explain this, of people who said that they visit media-related social media properties, it's a bit of a tongue twister, 31% of them went into radio sites. It doesn't mean 31% of radio listeners go daily to our social media. But of all the people who daily go into media sites, 31% of it was radio. So again, people not just being connected, but being regularly connected and feeling the need or being pulled towards the thing. And this really talks, I think, about radio now having a sort of holistic approach to the whole total audience here. You know, whereby it's not just about listening to live radio or listening to songs. It's about a whole sort of relationship and engagement here. Just to finish off, what we also saw is that it's also a visual medium and becoming more so. So we always talk about, you know, what people are listening to, but you can see that the most common reason for going into a site was actually to see a video or to look at photos related to radio. So again, great opportunities around that for engagement and everything. So, you know, we see it all the time. There's live streaming, both of the audio, but also very often of the video within the studio or special events or anything else that's going on. So that sort of wraps up my session. What I would say is really positive news in terms of the state of the industry. You know, from an independent point of view, really vibrant, I think. Lots going on. It's not the old media, and we shouldn't be causing this because you can see it's spanning everything. People, lots of people in Malaysia, nearly everyone, listens to radio on a weekly basis. And when they do, they're really engaged. They're really engaged with the station, with the DJ, and they've got strong loyalty to those properties. And they really feel it as a companion and feel almost that the radio is part of the family. And I think that's the real strong point. Not just the numbers. As I said, the numbers are incredibly important, especially as an industry that's trying to trade. But there's so many other reasons, you know, that makes radio really unique in Malaysia. So on that happy note, and I hope this has made you happy. I hope you're as happy as this lady in the photo. She's running off into the sunset with her radio, but she actually doesn't need a radio now because she can have a smartphone. So maybe she's of an older demographic. I hope that's given you a good oversight of the new measurement. As I said, we're incredibly proud and honoured to be working with the industry. And we're going to keep innovating. So although I mentioned right at the beginning we've done some new things in Malaysia, we're always working with the industry to look at new ways of improving it and getting more insights out for the industry. So on that note, I'd like to thank you, and I think we may have some questions.
Yes, we're opening the floor for questions, so you can just raise your hand. There are people around with the mic. Just raise your hand, someone will come running to you. Yes, I see you're all so eager. Not all at once now. From the, I have a question, from the survey from 2006, are these urban, is this rural, from the sample size?
So there's two samples. One is the 12,000 per year for the radio diary. That's total Peninsular Malaysia. Yeah. So it's urban and rural. With the Radio Insights, it's a younger audience, it's more online, probably be a bit more urban, but it does include urban and rural. Yeah, so the key thing, I suppose, is that for the diary survey, we've got to make it as representative as possible of the total population.
Questions? Very interactive crowd. Do we need to do this online?
Should have done it digitally.
We should have given you a WhatsApp number. Maybe I can read from there. No questions? You're all on radio. Hello.
Well, I know it's sometimes difficult with a large audience and everything, but please, if there are any questions you have, please approach us. We'll be hanging around afterwards. Please approach us, me and the Malaysian team who are here, and feel free to ask us, and please do contact us if there's anything. Oh,
there is. Okay. Oh. Okay.
I was just wondering, why don't you cover East Malaysia, Sabah, Sarawak on the rating survey?
Yeah, it was something we talked about, and I think it's on the agenda for the industry. The brief at the time was to cover just Peninsular Malaysia at this point. It's not a reason that we can't cover it. It's just what we did at the time. So if there's a will within the industry, as an industry, I think that could be discussed. As I said, this is not a measurement set in stone that we're saying, okay, from now until forever, there will be this many diaries, this many paper diaries, this many electronic diaries, it will be this geography. We're always open to moving it. Yeah.
I believe you have another question, the gentleman there. Maybe just name where you're from and your question. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Kim Chai from the Recording Industry Association. So do you have a comment about how podcasts are affecting the radio industry? Because with podcasts, it's content on demand, how is it supporting or detracting from radio?
Yeah, it's a good question. We didn't address it directly in this study. We know they're becoming more popular. One of the things, and I can't talk too much about it, but we've just done a study in Australia, and we'd really like to replicate it in Malaysia. And what we did was total share of year. So not just radio. Because what people are also interested in going, okay, I know all these numbers about radio, but what's happening to there? And certainly in Australia, podcasts came out fairly strongly, you know, as sort of incremental listening. So we didn't address it directly in this study. But the good thing about the Radio Insights study is, again, that questionnaire is not set in stone. So we can change the questions from year to year. We would like to keep some of the questions in so we can start seeing trends. And again, where we've run it in other countries, we have changed it to include things like that. And also to include, I think there was a question one time about how much earphone listening was going on versus, you know, listening to the ambient sound. And again, we tweaked it there. I hope that sort of answers your question. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, another question there?
everyone. My question is there any difference regarding various geographical regions and difference in the content that the listeners would like to listen in your researches?
In the regions in Malaysia?
Yes.
I'm not an expert in that. We did see, just even at a very high level, we did see differences in time spent listening and also in terms of reach. I know that there are differences in station preferences as well by geography, quite often driven by the differences in population and age, and whether it's an urban or rural demographic that is in that region. There's also the other thing of the regional players as well, which can be stronger in some areas.
I mean, is there any difference in subjects that the listeners would like to listen to in different regions of the country?
We didn't look at that. We didn't look at that in this study. But I would imagine that would be driven by urban, rural, and by demographics to a certain point as well. So I think that, and also maybe the platform they're listening to as well. What they're doing at the time. Whether it's a commute, whether it's just an accompaniment in the house, or whether it's via smartphone, in a younger demographic. But we didn't address that directly.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thanks.
We have one last question there. Name, where you're from, and your question. Thanks.
Hi, Lee. My name is Nazrin from BLF International. And from an advertising point of view, did the insights give you any insight into what kind of industries would do well on radio?
No, it didn't. All we saw was that you saw the bars where there was a lot of engagement and a lot of positive connection with the advertisers. And I think, again, looking at other studies, both GfK and other studies I've seen, radio tends to be very, very good at different types of advertising. So the call to action is very strong. Your Thursday, Friday advertising, this weekend only, get down to a store, we've got a massive clear out going on, it's here. But also we know from other studies that automotive use it, as a brand building exercise, not a, immediate $500 off or whatever. So I think it works very well across different areas. That's much more difficult to measure from a consumer point of view, though, especially without going into a lot of depth. But what we have seen is, in my previous life, I worked a lot on return on investment of media, and we saw on radio it was different types of campaigns gave strong ROI. It wasn't just the call to action. But whatever medium it is, make sure whatever you're doing, because we always deal with clients and they say, and it's usually luxury brands, you know what, I spent all this money on radio and my sales didn't go up significantly, and I'm going, well, I tell you what, if you're Rolex, why don't you put on the radio ad, buy one, get one free this weekend only? I'll show you a sales uplift, but it might wreck your brand. What are you actually doing on the medium? You're actually trying to brand build. Whereas if Starbucks come on the radio today and go, you know what, we've got this brand new coffee, we're doing it half price or it's free, the place is queued out, you can see an uplift. It depends. You've got to be very careful about what your advertising is actually doing, I think. But to answer your question, we've seen it work on both ways. Yeah.
Thank you, Lee. Thank you for your
Okay.
time. Round of
Thank you.
applause.